Welcome to the Selling to Corporate podcast, where we're going to be challenging your sales beliefs around selling to corporate organizations and help you increase your bottom line profits every single month. I am Jessica Lorimer, your sales expert and guide in this world of selling to corporate companies, skyrocketing your company sales and making the impact that you really want in the world. Now, don't forget, if you do enjoy the show today, please do head over to iTunes and leave us a review. But enjoy this episode, and I am really looking forward to sharing some epic sales wisdom with you. It is October. It's autumn season. My favourite, actually, because the colours in the leaves usually match whatever hair dye shenanigans I have going on. And it is jumper season. I am so excited about this. In fact, last year I wrote a Facebook post, which I obviously very rarely do, but I wrote a Facebook post about cardigans. I was like, I don't own a cardigan. And this year, I do own a cardigan. I took the recommendations from that Facebook post. I've bought my first ever cardigan. I'm super excited to wear it. As I'm saying this, I've realised how much my life has changed since my 20s. So if anyone else is feeling that vibe, let me know. But it is exciting. We are in the autumn. It is a really good and really exciting delivery period for me because I get to work with lots of companies this quarter, which is always really exciting. Gets me to stretch my brain a little bit, gives me some extra trends and insights for next year that I get to share with my community, with our course participants. And most importantly, it is the final time for people to buy the C-suite. So at the time this episode airs, you've got 14 days to the 31st of October, 2025 at 5 p.m. UK, which is when we will be closing the doors to the C-suite forever. Which seems like a weird thing to say. And people have been asking me a lot about whether it's a marketing ploy, whether they'll be able to join on the 1st of November or, can they still think about it into next year? And the answer, quite simply, is no. The deadline is the 31st of October, 2025 at 5 p.m. UK. If you haven't got your spot inside the C-suite and taken advantage of the final ever running time discount, or you have been in a previous round of the C-suite and you haven't re-enrolled if you want live support, then you're going to miss out. So if you haven't checked it out yet, please do make sure you head across to the website, or you can click on smartlytocel.thriveCart.com/the-c-suite-2026-live/. So if you want to do any of those things and go and grab your space, you absolutely can. This isn't going to be an episode about why it's the last time I'm ever running the C-suite. If you're on my newsletter list, I've talked about why this is happening. It's not a marketing ploy. There are many reasons that I'm doing it, but I am most importantly super excited to run it one last ever time and to get to support our new participants and getting to support people who are re-enrolling for live support to really make a change to their corporate sales process next year and see them skyrocket, streamline, expand, and enjoy their B2B sales processes. I've got this whole year booked out. I'm raring to go. As you can probably tell from my voice, I'm just honestly super excited about it. So if you are somebody who knows that you have been waiting and waiting, patiently on the fence for the C-suite, thinking, I'll do it next time, I'll give it a go next year, I'll wait 6 months, I'll do X, this is it. If you are not in and enrolled before October 31st, 2025 at 5 p.m, it will be gone for good. You won't be able to get the course anywhere. You won't be able to get access to the portal anywhere. You won't be able to get live support to it anywhere. This is the final call, as they say. So if that's been on your mind, make sure that you head across to the website. You can access that in the show notes and click through to the C-suite, or you can enroll using one of the newsletters that I send out each week. Or you can go to that web link I mentioned earlier, smartlytocel.thriveCart.com/the-c-suite-2026-live/. I mean, I think that's /. Just type it in, see what happens. So excitingly for today, I've put together an episode that will be a quick one, but also a super important one, because I've been asked for the last 5 years at least, every single month, what is the best CRM system in the world? And I haven't yet recorded a podcast episode on what the best CRM system is. And I thought to myself, autumn is the time to do this. And the reason, I promise you, there's a method to my madness here. The reason that autumn is a good time to start looking at your CRM system is because actually, in the selling to corporate space and delivering to corporate space, you will find that in December, nobody really wants to do training, right? They don't want it delivered then because everyone is focused on Christmas parties and festive celebrations and taking time off. So it is the perfect time if you are doing your forward sales activity in the right way, which you obviously should be prioritizing right now. December is the perfect time to sit back and be like, I've chosen which CRM system I'm going to use. And now I am going to spend time and energy on actually setting it up for success. So if you're listening to today's episode and thinking, well, December isn't in autumn, Jess, I'm telling you now, choose now and then use that time in December when you're not delivering and not having to sell. Because if you're in one of my programs and using the strategies and templates and things, you should be forward selling with ease at this point. You can just sit back. Right? Just going to populate my CRM. Going to give myself this license to print money for next year. So let's talk about CRM systems. What is the best one for you to choose? And, ultimately, how are you going to make cash from it? So firstly, we have to start, and I say this with every episode where I'm explaining anything, with the definition, right? Because sometimes we can get a little bit caught up. We can talk about different things inadvertently. And when it comes to CRM systems, the first natural question from most people who either haven't been in a sales role before or who haven't worked in B2B sales before is, what is a CRM system? And that, my friends, is a very good question because most people can get a little bit mixed up. Even if they've been in the online space and selling to individuals for a while, it's easy to get a little bit confused about what a CRM system actually is, okay? So just to clarify, a CRM system is a customer relationship management system. Now, this means that the primary job of a piece of software that describes itself or advertises itself as a CRM system is that it is there to help you record your activities around building relationships with customers and report on those activities with your relationships that you're building with customers. So the reason I specify that is because a lot of email providers in the online space have gravitated into adding CRM systems, right? So you might find that your current email provider, if you have a mass newsletter that you send out or something like that, you might find that they have tacked on a CRM system that you pay an additional fee for. You may also find that you could be using what was primarily a customer relationship management system and that they have tacked on other tools like email marketing, for example, or like SMS messaging or, WhatsApp capability. So it's important we actually understand what a CRM system is and what it does for a salesperson or for you as the primary salesperson in your business. So a CRM system is there specifically to help you record the sales activities that you're doing so that you can build better relationships with customers. And it is there for you to be able to report on the sales activities that you're doing. Now, this is super, super important. And the reason that it's important is because I describe CRM systems a lot as a license to print money, which they are. They are an absolute license to print money. But that is not because they do anything magical, right? And we're going to talk about that in this episode because I think it's really important. When people ask me what's the best CRM system to use, they are asking me from the perspective of, Jess has said that this is a license to print money, so there must be a best one to use. actually there are lots of other factors that go into choosing the best CRM system for you to use it as a license to print money, right? So what is a CRM system? Well, it is a piece of software that allows you to record the sales activities that you're doing, keep track of the relationships you're building with customers, and report on those things. And the reason that that's important, or all of that is important, is A, so that you know what sales activities you're actually doing, and B, so you know what sales activities you're doing that are actually working, right? Now, this is interesting because most people don't. Most people don't know what sales activity they're doing because they confuse it with marketing activity, and because they are not really sure what targets or goals their sales activity should be achieving, so they're not really measuring them in that way. And B, most people don't have easy access to reporting, which means that even when they are doing sales activity, they don't really know what's working, what isn't, because instead of operating using data provided by the report, they're operating based on what feels good. And again, this is one of the big reasons that people, specifically entrepreneurs, often fall into marketing activities in their business rather than sales activities, because the marketing activities, the posting on social media or whatever, make people feel good. It gives them endorphins when it gets liked and shared and commented on. Whereas sitting down and looking at the data inside your CRM system can suddenly somehow feel like a boring process in comparison. Unless, of course, you're a massive nerd like me, in which case you would much prefer this CRM. So that's what a CRM system is. And so when we understand that it is essentially just a giant record and report keeping and giving device, you could be, it would be easy to think, well, do I really need one? Or who really needs one? And the answer is that anyone who wants to make repeatable, predictable, consistent sales should have a CRM system and should be using it. And there are certain questions that I'm going to give you to answer for yourself as to which one you're then going to be able to choose. But this is the interesting thing about being an entrepreneur. There is tons out there that will tell you that you can just set up a load of free tools and then you're going to make lots of money. And it's weird because it's the only industry that this happens in. I go to businesses all of the time. I go to some really, really interesting businesses that are turning over in excess of £20 million a year. And do you know what they don't say to me? Jess, it's fine. We've read a blog on this and, we can give this a crack. Or Jess, there is a free version of this software. We can use this and it's going to make us billions in return. When we're entrepreneurs, and particularly in the online space, there's this expectation that bootstrapping and doing everything for free should absolutely get you the same results as if you pay or invest in something. And that isn't true. Now, that doesn't mean that you should look at whatever is the most expensive CRM system on the market and go and buy it. Obviously not, because we're going to talk through why that would be a bad decision shortly. But it does mean that if you are somebody who sat there thinking, well, I'm going to keep using an Excel spreadsheet for now, and then I'm only going to upgrade to a CRM system that I may or may not have to pay for when I've got a certain number of people in my database, when I've made a certain amount of sales, when I've had a certain amount of sales calls and I'm confident that I'm actually going to use it, blah, 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 blah. If you keep doing that, you are getting further and further away from your sales goals. You're making it harder and harder and harder for yourself to hit your sales goals because you are not recording and reporting information, right? So when we talk about who should have a CRM system, we are not talking about everybody in a blanket sense should have one, but certainly everybody who wants to be a genuine business owner who is actually interested and invested in creating a sales process that works, in monitoring existing sales processes so that they can continue to work, in troubleshooting sales processes effectively so that they can make them more efficient. Those people should have and use and rely on a CRM system, without a doubt. But if you're somebody who is right at the beginning of your business, you're not really sure whether you want to have a business forever, you're not going to invest in your sales process and look at it, you're just kind of haphazardly trying whatever might work, don't get one. Very expensive mistake, and very time consuming, right? So I realize, as I've said that might sound a bit judgmental. It's really not meant that way. What I am trying to say though is a CRM system is something that you should only embed in your business if you are planning on having a business. And that means doing everything around it to set it up for success. So if you are that person who knows that you want to have a business forever, or at least for the next 5 years, and you want to make it work and you want to make consistent, predictable sales, and you are willing to invest the time, the energy, and potentially the money in both CRM systems and sales training and anything else that you need to make it work, then get a CRM system. If you're somebody who is right at the beginning of your journey and you're like, I'm just not sure whether having a business is for me, don't, because you will spend way too much time figuring out how to use it, way too much time diving into help documentation to make it worth it. And you won't spend enough time on the sales activities that will actually get you the money that would give you the ability to benefit properly from it. Okay. That's what I should have said. And hopefully sounds less judgy because it really wasn't meant that way the first time around. So essentially what we're saying is everybody who is a business owner who wants predictable sales should get a CRM system and should have one and should use it regularly. Now, there are pros and cons to having a CRM system. It will not surprise you to learn. And actually, when I say to companies all the time, professional salespeople have a love-loathe relationship with CRM systems. And so do entrepreneurs, and so does anybody who comes into contact with them. And that's because CRM systems and using them effectively license to print money. And you will hear me say that phrase a lot throughout this episode. So I don't apologize for that because they are. But you might be thinking, well, if they're so great, why don't people use them properly? And I will tell you, because using CRM systems requires recording data. And when I say data, I mean, it means making clear notes on sales calls. It means recording data on how much sales activity you're doing. It means recording your KPIs and whether or not you're hitting them and seeing reports on that month by month. Weirdly, those things are not always activities or positions that people enjoy. And that's why they don't use them properly. And that's why they end up investing in sometimes quite expensive systems and not using them. And this is the same across the board for entrepreneurs and professional salespeople. I say to companies a lot, if I could make salespeople, professional salespeople, use CRM systems consistently, companies would pay me billions, because the money that they lose when professional salespeople do not use CRM systems correctly is vast, as in not even measurable. The amount of money that it costs companies when their salespeople can't be bothered or don't prioritize using a CRM system is just unbelievably high. And it's the same for your business, right? It's exactly the same in your business. But people tell me things like, I'm too busy to record the data. I don't have time in their day where I'm doing sales calls to write about them. They'll tell me that, they don't want a CRM system because they don't want to track their activity because it would make them feel like they're not in flow. They tell me that there's no point having a CRM system until they've got a certain amount of contacts in their database. You give me the excuse for people not to use them, and I have heard it. And I won't have heard it once. I'll have heard it 50 million times. And again, this isn't because people don't want to be successful. This isn't because people don't want their businesses to work. This is because having a CRM system that is that license to print money and that does generate significant revenue for you by way of recording and reporting on your sales activity, for most people it's uncomfortable because they don't have the other setup around it. They don't know what they're supposed to be tracking. They don't know what they're supposed to be recording. They don't know what they're supposed to be reporting on. So if you don't know those things, then obviously having one, A, feels a bit pointless, and B, isn't going to make you any money at all, right? But used correctly, the pros of having a CRM system that you have set up in alignment with a really solid sales process, the pros are you are able to build much better relationships with prospective clients much more quickly. Nobody falls out of your sales process. You don't just forget to send an invoice, right? So what happens is you end up having sales processes that are replicated for every customer, which means you standardize the level of customer experience. It means you standardize the way you get paid. It means that you operate a sales process that actually moves quickly and moves in alignment with some of those statistics that we've talked about on the podcast. I talk a lot about the fact that deals under 100K in value, total value, close on average within 90 days from cold lead to close sale. And deals of 100K above, or above 100K, that was a weird way to phrase it, wasn't it? Take on average 120 days from cold to closed, right? So if your deals aren't doing that, having a CRM system will tell you why. And using that CRM system will tell you why. Because the pros are that you will record the data, you will be able to troubleshoot your data effectively, you'll be able to do it regularly, you'll be able to spot problems and trends as they are arising rather than waiting until it's too late. It will give you really clear records of relationship building activities with clients, and it will help you spot future opportunities with existing clients, with new prospects, and everything in between. However, the cons of having a CRM system can be vast, right? If it's not used correctly, so if you haven't set it up in alignment with a clear sales process and you're just using it a bit like a diary, it's an expensive use of time and probably money. CRM systems do tend to have a cost. You can get some free ones or some free plans to a certain level. But the reality is there is a cost involved with them because they are such a great tool for making money. So beyond a certain point, if you're not taking your sales process seriously, or you're not using your CRM effectively, or both, you're going to end up with a costly piece of software that isn't generating any return on investment for you. So that's why it's really important that new salespeople don't just use a CRM and assume that that's going to give them sales training. It won't. You will only be able to maximize the effectiveness of a CRM through having sales training and knowing how to use a CRM alongside it, right? So it is going to cost you money, whether that's on the side of the CRM itself and paying for the software, or whether it's on the side of sales training that is effective to teach you how to use something or how to set up a sales process that then your CRM benefits from and can help you make money moving forward with. The other cons of having a CRM system are, things like data processing. In the UK and Europe, we are bound by GDPR. So we have to make sure that whichever CRM system we use is also taking care of people's personal data. So we have to make sure that we're using something that, we feel is reputable and safe for data processing. And, obviously the other con of a CRM is that you actually have to do work to make it work. This always feels like a weird one to say, but, you can't just have a CRM and be like, oh, cool, well, when's the money going to start coming out? That's not the case. Like I say, you are going to have to put work in to set it up. You're going to have to put time in to understand how to use it. You're going to have to invest your time, money, and energy into a sales process and developing a sales process that allows you to use it in the right way so that you can get the return on investment. So it's not a case of, like most softwares would have you believe, buy the software and then suddenly miraculously you're making tons of cash because you have or own a CRM system. There are also things that, you have to consider around changing, because anyone can have a CRM system or, buy into a piece of software, but things change. Software businesses change. They change their pricing structures. They change what they're allowed or giving in certain plans. And so sometimes a con can be that you will have a system that you love, that you're beholden to, and you're beholden to the changes that that company makes to that piece of software and to their pricing. And we've seen that a lot in the online space over the last few years, particularly around like email marketing software. It's been a lot around email marketing companies and stuff putting their prices up. And personally, I think we see a lot online about how awful it is that they're raising their prices. But, a lot of business owners are failing to think about some of the prices that are involved in really making that software as good, as reliable, and as up to date in the current market. And they're not thinking about the staffing costs and the fact that inflation has hit, or the operating costs of running those businesses and the offices that they have to have and the software, and all those kinds of things. So it's irritating, don't get me wrong, but I am saying that in your business, if you're going to use any piece of software, expect price changes, expect layout changes, expect other companies to do what is best for their business with their software. And you are going to be beholden to that, right? However, if you're listening, and rightly so, thinking, oh my goodness, Jess, I didn't realize that having a CRM system and recording and reporting on my data would actually give me the ability to make more sales and make sales in a quicker way. I need to get me one of those. The next natural question is, what's the best one to use? And that's what I get asked a lot. So I will preface this by saying, if you want to know which CRM system I use, message me directly, because I'm not going to do a podcast episode that becomes an advert inadvertently for any CRM system. If you want to know after the rest of this app about which system I use specifically, drop me a line, drop me an email, drop me a message on LinkedIn, whatever you want. But I think that there are better ways to think about this question. And so when people say to me, what's the best CRM out there? And I get it all the time, by the way. So if you've ever asked me this question, don't worry, this is not directed at you. I get this from CEOs of small to medium-sized enterprises that are just setting up their first ever sales team and want to know what CRM to use. I get it from sales directors in huge established companies who are thinking of making the switch for whatever reason. Might be cost, might be ease of use, might be functionality. And I get asked it by entrepreneurs all of the time. Which is best? What is best? What's the best system? What would you recommend? And so in this episode, like I say, I'm not going to tell you, you should go and use X system. I'm going to say there are questions that you should be asking yourself before you choose a system, right? So any piece of software, or most pieces of software that you'll see on the internet, whether it's a CRM system or an email marketing system or, any other platform that you want to use, all of them will give you free trials. They will do demos. They will show you around the product so that you can make the right decision for you. Okay? And that's really important because obviously there is no point choosing a piece of software that 10 days later you're going to be like, well, no, don't like this, want a refund, or, didn't realize that it didn't do a lot of the things that I actually want it to do. Or I suddenly realize loads of things about the user experience that I don't like, and then you're trying to get refunds and it becomes a whole nightmare for the buyer and for the seller of the software. So lots and lots of these firms that run or have created CRM systems will give you a demo of the software. They have extensive documentation usually on their websites about how it works, what the features are, the functionality of the product. They'll talk about the price. They will, in some cases, give you those free trials that I mentioned so that you can actually have a look around and a bit of a play with it. Make sure you take those things up before you make a choice. Because actually, when we're thinking about what is the best CRM system to use, the question that we actually should be asking ourselves is, what is the best CRM system for me to use? And I want to be super clear about that because when people ask me, well, what's the CRM system you use, Jess? I'm like, well, I use a CRM system for my corporate consulting. So I actually use a separate customer relationship management system for my corporate work than I do for my entrepreneurial work. And that's because I asked myself the questions that I'm just about to give you, that you can ask yourself, and made decisions about both areas of my business. My business probably doesn't look exactly the same as yours. So if you are somebody who's only selling B2B, then actually you probably don't need 2 CRM systems. You need 1. And so that might mean that you make different choices than I do about which system you choose. It might be that you're still operating B2B and B2C. in which case you might choose differently again. You might say, well, actually, I only want to use one CRM system. I don't want to use two. I want to use one, but I want to be able to split them, or I want to be able to, accurately identify the right audiences at the right time for the right things. Yeah. So instead of looking at the big influencers online and saying, oh my gosh, that person uses this system, that person uses that system, and they're probably an affiliate for it, which absolutely fine. If you've got a product that you love and want to recommend, get rewarded by all means. But it also means that if their business isn't operating in the same way as yours, and they haven't answered these questions in the same way as you, that system might not actually be the best fit for you, right? So when I walk through this with sales directors of big companies or CEOs and MDs of smaller companies or entrepreneurs who are considering CRM systems, these are the things that they ask themselves, or that I get them to ask themselves before they make a decision and before they start exploring the market. And it's worth saying that you might get to the end of these questions and think, oh God, I've got a CRM system at the moment, but I don't need it, or I don't want it anymore, or based on these questions and what I've answered, it doesn't actually meet my need. That is fine. There's nothing to worry about. This happens. It's normal. Just go with the flow. If you've found out by the end of these questions that actually your current CRM isn't going to work for you now, it's probably not going to work for you in the future because it doesn't have the functionality you want, well, bummer. Get a different one. Don't spend hours and hours thinking about how you can beat yourself up about it and what else you should be considering and whether you can send them an email and see if they'll integrate some features. Just go and find something else, right? So the first question that you need to ask yourself before you even start exploring CRM systems is, do I have a proven sales process that it is worth me recording and reporting on information? Okay. And I say this to sales directors all the time, right? It doesn't matter if your salespeople are making money if they don't know metrics, if they don't know their key performance indicators, if they don't know what activities are supposed to produce what type of results. There is no point having a CRM system that is all bells and whistles, because at that point, you're just recording any data and hoping that it gives you some insights. So the first question you need to ask yourself is, do I already have a proven sales process that I am able to record and report on? And if I don't have a proven sales process that I could record and report on, that needs to be my first point of call. I need to either start recording what I'm doing and try and figure out from the insights that I'm getting what is going well with it and what isn't, or I need to go and invest in understanding how to build a best practice sales process, because otherwise I'm going to invest in a bit of software that I think is going to be a magic pill and is not. Right? CRM will only give you data based on what you have put into it. So if you are recording all the wrong kinds of activities, or you're not actually doing sales activities and you're expecting marketing activities to provide a sales result, your CRM will only tell you what you are doing now isn't working, right? It will not tell you why. So that's the first thing. Do you have a proven sales process? If not, get yourself one, right? That's the first consideration. And alongside that, choose a CRM system that is going to be able to grow with you and with your newfound knowledge of your sales process or building a sales process. The second question that you need to ask yourself is, how much do I want to spend? Right? Again, there's no judgment around this. Lots of CRM systems will have free options to a certain level. So that might be defined by a number of users or number of contacts in your database or functionality limitations. But you need to decide, what do I want to spend? Now, if you're making £5,000 a month, for example, and you're saying, I only want a free CRM system forever, then unfortunately, you are likely to be hindered by some of the limitations around functionality, around number of users, around number of contacts. So if you're already making money each month, I would recommend paying for a CRM system, because A, it's going to make you use it. When we invest, we actually implement, as opposed to when we don't invest and we are taking something for free and we're just sort of not bothered by it. We're not feeling any impetus or motivation to use it. And B, because actually the limitations that are put on the functionality or number of users, for example, will actually be limiting the return on investment you can get from that software. Okay. If you're just starting out, you're not making money yet, absolutely take a free version, answer the other questions so that you can decide which version you want or which software you want, and then let it grow with you and be prepared that in the future, that may be a cost to your business. The third question we need to ask yourself is, what information do I want to record? Okay. And this is how we determine what sort of CRM system we want. Because some CRM systems are pure CRM systems. They will do the recording and the reporting, but nothing else. Right? So they are just recording devices, essentially. Some CRMs have lots more functionality. Like I mentioned earlier, they might have email marketing, they might have WhatsApp messaging, SMS. So what information do you want to record? And what else do you want a system to do, if anything? Now, the more functionality you have, the more expensive it's going to be. And, you'll find that software costs do climb exponentially. Okay, so, you are going to always be looking at price rises and things because software changes, it updates, it gets better. As it gets better, they want to charge more for it. So the more functionality you have, the higher the cost will be from the start and over time. So knowing what information you want to record and what you want to utilize is hugely important. And again, if you don't have a best practice sales process, you might not know what information you need to record or what information is going to be valuable, and that will cause problems. So make sure that if you haven't already got a proven sales process, or if you have no plans to invest in sales training to help you get that process, that you do something else, because otherwise it is going to be, you can have as many bells and whistles, as much functionality as you want, but functionality does not equal return on investment from a CRM. How you use it determines return on investment. And then finally, you need to ask yourself, what user interface do I like? Sounds like a really simple question, but honestly, so many people don't think about this. They go with the bells and whistles, or they go with the one, chosen by the influencer who's got the big following on LinkedIn. And they don't actually think about, what user interface do I want? Because that determines how regularly you're going to use it. If you buy something that you hate using, guess what? You're not going to use that. That's not going to happen. That's going to be really difficult for you. So it doesn't, again, matter how much you've spent on it, how much functionality it's got. If you don't like the user interface and you find it difficult to log in, or you find it difficult to navigate, guess who's probably not going to spend the time and energy learning how to do it properly? And guess who's probably not going to use it? And guess in 12 months, who's probably going to have paid a bill for a CRM system that didn't make any money, that they didn't even log into? These are the questions that you need to ask yourself. And then you can absolutely go online, check out, just type in CRM system. Thousands will come up. I kid you not. There'll be some that are cloud hosted, some that you can use yourself on your own computer and download. They're getting rarer these days, but they are still available. You've got things that are at enterprise level. You've got things that you can use just for one user in your own business. There will be thousands. But these are the questions that you need to know the answer to, because they are going to be the questions that define what you are going to use in the best way and what's going to get you a return on investment. All right. If you want a sales training process and a B2B sales process that's going to actually get you results using a CRM system, do remember there are only 2 weeks left. So 31st of October 2025 at 5 p.m. UK is when the C-suite closes for good, forever, never to be seen again. So if you want to get in and you want to take advantage of that last time discount, make sure you do go and sign yourself up, and let's get you cracking for 2026. I'll see you in the next step.